And here we are in week 4. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like this module is just moving right along. Like we are going at fast speed because like next week is already what? Midterms, right? So, hello everyone. There are a nice amount of us today. Okay, we're gonna get down to the regular business. We know we got to complete. I really highly encourage y'all to work on your knowledge checks. Um, especially with those terms, it's really going to help prepare y'all for the upcoming midterm. I cannot stress. You guys have been doing phenomenal, and I know that y'all are going to do really good on the midterm, but go back, even if you've gotten perfects as a review, just go back through them and really kind of shake out all the nervousness, basically, right? So we have our math trivia. We have chapter 5, which is length of stay, and it's gonna really mirror kind of what y'all did last week. And then we're gonna wrap it all up. For those of you who are watching this playback, the question that I have for you, if you struck gold with a tax-free lottery jackpot of $6 million, emphasis on tax-free, what adventures and dreams would you turn into reality with your newfound fortune? For those of us that are here, we can kind of think about that too. I know for me, the first thing is I would be that individual that had a sign over my face so you couldn't see that I had won. And then I'd just be like, no one would know. Like, no one would know. And I would be secretly trying to put things in place. But for those of you who are watching the playback, let's have some fun. What would you do? $6 million tax, keyword tax free. Because we all know once you add those taxes, that 6 million is gonna go way fast. Pay off my parents' house, honestly, and the rest I'd hide it, but if I out. That's what I'm talking about. I'd hide it. I mean, I would definitely pay off my parents' home too. But you wouldn't even know. In some states, they require you to like stand there and have all that information, like have your picture. And I've seen people do like the little masks and stuff. And I'm like, that's smart. So that would be something that I'm like thinking, yeah, in Cali, right? Buy a house in Palm Springs, hire attorneys. Yes, that's the first thing. Get someone to help you manage that money so that people aren't coming from you. Also, you'll notice that I've heard, because I haven't won lottery, but that it seems like everyone comes out of the woodworks, right? Like when you see people who have won even like 100,000. I heard stories about, people coming that I hadn't even talked to ever. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, cuz, hey, uncle, blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was interesting. So yeah, let's have some fun in the discussion forum as we're kind of having fun now in the live session. All right. Our math trivia. Where is 4 considered an unlucky number? Now, I got this one. I have a little one, and turning red was big, right? And even though I felt turning red was still a little too mature for my little one, but she wanted to watch it, and it was not too bad. And that's where I actually found out that in Asia, 4 is considered a very unlucky number. And math may not teach us how to add love or subtract hate, but it gives us hope that every problem has a solution. And I like that. I was like, that's pretty cool. Okay. We're talking about length of stay. Okay. How long has this been going on? When we get into a length of stay, we try to figure out various patient demographics. We have to look at analyzing the length of stay, not just for adults, but children and newborns. We are going to be looking at patterns that actually emerge in different types of important matrices. And then we have to also look at a correlation with the length of stay gaining insight that can really just help us with strategic decision making, especially in the extremely complicated healthcare setting. So right off the bat, we get into what does length of stay mean, right? We know we're just talking about how long patients stay in hospitals. It's going to be from the time that they have been admitted to when they're discharged. We can figure out the overall length of stay for the entire hospital, or maybe we want to find out specific areas like dealing with patients that have had heart attacks or patients that are managing diabetes. It is a way to just understand and track how much time patients spend in the hospital for a lot of different conditions. So, first off, we count every patient in the hospital except, there's always an exception, right? For the actual day they leave. That one, again, does not get counted. To find the length of stay for a patient, we do simple math, okay? We subtract the admission date from the discharge date, and then this gives us the total numbers of days that they have spent in the actual hospital. When we start talking about discharges, we do include everyone, whether they left the hospital alive or unfortunately passed away during their stay. And if patient is, or if patients are admitted and discharged on the same day, we still count it as 1 day stay. It's like they checked in and out in a single day, like a quick hospital visit. Now we get into total discharge days, the sum of the number of days spent in hospitals for each inpatient who was discharged during the same time period examined. It does not matter when the patient was actually admitted. And I really do like this image. Dad, let's make a care plan so you don't have to return to the hospital. You know, a lot of patients are readmitted to the hospital within 30 days of discharge. So it's really important to make a plan. So I thought that was really cute. So I grabbed it and was like, oh, fits perfectly. Now, what is the actual length of stay? Now, the length of stay is a measure in healthcare, and it tells us how much time a patient spends in a hospital, starting from the day, of course, they admitted to when they are being discharged. When we calculate this, we're calculating for the entire hospital, or we can look and focus on specific areas. We have our example, okay? A patient is admitted to the hospital on March 30th, okay? So we get down here, they were admitted on March 30th, and they were discharged on April 4th, right? We look at what is the patient's length of stay. Calculate it. You can look at the calendar, you can get the number, and then discharge day does not count. So just always keep that in mind. Your discharge day does not count. Okay, so you see you have day of admission, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be technically 6, but we do not count that discharge. That's why I kind of wrote it down. And then you have only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Okay, so that's one of the easier ways to kind of figure out the length of stay. Another example, if a calendar, let's say you don't have one, it's not available, you can list it out, by having all the days. So in this particular instance, same way, 3/30, 3/31, 4/1, 4/2, 4/3. We already know that 4/4 is a discharge date. We're not even going to even write it down. So then we know 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 5 days. Again, we do not include the discharge day. Okay, so that was method 2. But then there's still a way to do it. If the admission and the discharge are in the same month, then the calculation of the length of stay may also be accomplished by subtracting the day portion of the admission and discharge dates. So you have 31 through 30, transition from March to April. You have 1 day, April stays, 4 minus 1, 3 days. a lot more math, right? So you have the three options, okay? Method one, method two, or method three, where you're doing a lot more calculation, where you're taking the dates, you're subtracting, you're adding to get to the length of stay. Okay, so however way you feel the most comfortable, that's the one I want y'all to utilize as you start getting ready and gearing up for your midterm. Quick recap. The sum of the number of days spent in the hospital for each inpatient who was discharged during the time period examined regardless of when the patient was admitted. And I grabbed this one because this one's total discharge days. Sometimes you'll see total discharge days, length of stay. And these two have been highly missed in the past. So I really wanted to kind of put them visually so you can kind of see when we look at the length of stay, clinical metric that measures the length of time elapsed between patient hospitals, admittance, and discharge. So you got total discharge days and you got your length of stay. There are a lot of terms, a lot of true or false. I broke it down on your review, but just so you know, you really want to get comfortable with the terms as well as being comfortable with the actual calculations, okay? Now, we're getting ready to get into some examples, things that you're going to actually mirror in your applying reflection that you will be working on for this week. We're getting ready to calculate time spent in outpatient setting, okay? So outpatient setting is not necessarily going to be days, but time. So it's the same kind of thing, length of stay. Length of stay is length of stay. Hospitals, you're thinking more of days. Outpatient setting, how long were these individuals in our facility? So let's get our first example. If a patient arrived at 8:05 a.m., okay, and was taken to the examining room at 8:22, subtract the minutes. 22 minus 05 gives you 17 minutes. You do have questions like this on your applying reflection, and I have seen a couple questions pop up randomly in some individuals' midterms, okay, with length of stay specifically for outpatient setting. You still have some for hospitals, but specifically, I have seen some questions on the length of stay for outpatient. Okay, so this one, patient was there for 17 minutes. In example two, if a patient arrived at an outpatient clinic room at 8:22 a.m. and the physician entered the room at 8:05 a.m., we're calculating exam room to physician contact methodology for this particular patient. Okay, let's break it down. We get in, we have the length of the stay, right? We have the exam room time minus arrival time. So we get 8:05 a.m. minus 8:22 a.m. equaling 50 minus 22 equaling 28 minutes. Again, make sure you guys are checking my work, okay? Trust but verify. So I got 28 minutes for this particular patient's arrival time to actually have the physician come in. So we're looking at 28 minutes. But we have another example. All right. You're subtracting hours. This is a little bit easier because you get there at 2:02. Let's say you get seen at 3:02, right? That's 60 minutes. 2:02 minus 3:02 is 60 minutes or 1 hour, right? So we have the 60 minutes you took from 3:02, all right? And then you have your O2, so that's exactly 60 minutes. But now the time is 2:62. It's a little bit different. It is now possible to subtract. So you have your 2:62. So you have 2:02 to 3:02. That's 6 minutes. But from you still have almost 2:62, and then in this case, 1:11, 1 hour and 51 minutes, which was the actual patient's wait time. Okay. Couple ways you can do it. The easiest way is to get those minutes out of the way. So let's take the same scenario, but instead of 3:02, let's say it was 3:34. Okay. So from 2:02 to 3:02 is 60 minutes. Then you still have the 34, well, 32. So then you have 1 hour and 32 minutes. So it's just the easiest way is getting that 60 minutes out of the way or however long, and then whatever left with your minutes, you can kind of figure it out from there. But let's break it down even more, okay? In this slide, we're calculating the length of stay for each of the patients in the particular table below. If no year is specified, we're going to automatically assume that it is not a leap year, okay? Unless it says we're in a leap year, which is ironic because we're in a leap year. But for the exercises, if it doesn't say it, we're not going to assume, okay? We're going to act like it's not a leap year, right? So we have a patient that was admitted on January 10th and discharged on January 31st. They were admitted and discharged in the same month. It's a lot easier because it's not that much you have to kind of figure out. But you have your 1 to 31. Okay. Same here. 7/8 to 7/30, still the same month. And then, of course, here, 11/20 to 11/20, it's the same day. Okay. Once it starts to get a little bit tricky is when you have multiple months added in. Now, we look at what the average length of stay even means. Okay. Number of days inpatient. So now we're looking at hospital, right? During the period under consideration stayed in the hospital. This is going to be important because we got to find out if a patient that would normally be discharged within 2 to 3 days, if for some reason they're there longer, we need to know why. I refer to the operating room a lot because y'all know that's my realm. And easiest case that I can think of is an appendectomy. Okay, we do a laparoscopic appendectomy. We take cameras going in, taking out the appendix through small little incisions. Typically, that's not going to be a surgical procedure where the patient's going to be there for a long time, especially when we do it laparoscopically. Okay, but let's say, for example, we have Dr. John Smith, random, don't know a Dr. John Smith, just throwing that out there. And his patients tend to have extended stays, multiple infections, perforated bowels, etc., etc. Well, all these calculations are going to let us know red flag, red flag. We need to go and kind of look at what's going on with, is it the team, his instrumentation, his technique? We've got to find out. That way we have a tool just to monitor and improve the hospital management practices. So we calculate the length of stay for an adult and children patients. Again, we know newborns are going to be calculated separately for now. We have the statistics in the table below, and we're going to determine the following calculations for community hospital. Here's that key word. We know that this hospital wants us to, no worries. We know that the hospital wants us to round the figures to 1 decimal place. Really important. 1 decimal place. So we already have that in our heads. Okay, boom, we're good. All right. Let's get this very first one out here. Calculating the length of stay, the average length of stay for adult and children patients. So looking at this chart, we got to figure out which column and rows we want to identify. We're going to go with the discharge days of 67,392. And then the number of discharges, okay, 15,672. So boom, we got our initial information, total adults and children. we know we're dealing with this first row. Once we've done all our calculations, hopefully someone has a calculator to kind of break down the entire. Let me see if I can get my calculator up with this as well. Think we got it. Let me close this a little so we can see the entire. There we go. All right. So we get 67,392 divided by 67,392 divided by 15,672. See a bunch of numbers, 4.30015. But our instructions tells us that we only want one decimal place. And so that's why we have 4.3. Okay. Now, if this zero was a 5 and above, then your answer would be 4.4. But because this zero does nothing to this 3, keep in mind, keep it at 4.3. Okay. But you have to have 4.3. If you put 4, I know technically that would be a correct answer. However, for this particular hospital, community hospital, they want their reports and everything with one decimal place. Okay, so that's how you kind of think of it when you see these instructions. Okay. All right. Let's do another one. Same chart, same chart. But this time we are looking at our newborn patients. So what numbers are we going to use this time? Which ones? Okay, let me go back. Let's go back. $3,453 and no worries. So I'm trying to, once you get to this section, you'll be able to really follow along. And what I'm going to do for you is timestamp where we started doing these examples. Okay. So that way you can go straight back just to the examples. And that's for everybody. So this part, and I have to write it down because y'all know I'm getting wise in my older age. That way, when you guys can go back, you can go straight to just the examples of average length of stay. And I will have that time stamped today. Okay. Okay. So where were we? I see the number. Yes, Miss Brittany. And yeah. So now we're looking at newborns, 3,453 and 1,502. So now we're here. Okay. Let's go ahead and do our calculations and let's see what we get. I'm going to go ahead and put 3,453. I'm going to divide that by 1,502. That is correct. The 9 makes that 2, a 3, 2.3. That is correct. Okay. Now, most hospitals we know so far do not include newborns in the average length of stay, right? Newborns usually stay in the hospital for a short time, similar to their mothers, right? However, if a newborn needs special care in the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit, their longer stay can really throw off overall average length of stay. So that's why we keep them separate to keep things accurate. Hospitals often analyze average length of stays separately for newborns and mothers because of that. It's like skewing the results. Okay. And we're going to be talking about skewing in week 10 when we get to statistical terms, but it's those extreme outliers, right? Where newborns are going to be there like that or like long periods of time. So we're going to use the table below to calculate the average. Let me clear this out. The average newborn length of stay in each month, and then calculate the annual length of the average newborn length of stay, round to one decimal place. So you see Got it already there for you. But how did I get these average newborn length of stays? Well, I'll start with the first one. We take the discharge days of January, 278 divided by 103, right? 2.699. Again, they want that one decimal place, that fine attention to detail, 2.7. Same thing with February, 427 divided by 128 gives us that 3.3. And finishing up with March, 247 divided by 107, 2.308. 8 can give the 0 1, but that 1's not going to do anything to the 3. So again, 2.3. Okay. Believe it or not, we have some knowledge checks, and then I'm going to break you guys up for 2 more questions. But when we get there, you'll know. So, a couple knowledge checks. You may see these questions. Okay, you guys know they're randomized, but you may get these. So, very first one, determine the length of stay for a patient that was admitted June 25th and discharged July 4th. You'll be given 10 days, 9 days, 8 days, or 7 days. Remember, you have 3 ways that you can figure out the length of stay. Pull up your calendar, count the days, take the number, almost. Yes, it's actually 9 days. And the reason I grabbed this one is because I have seen this one highly missed. So it's usually 50-50. I usually see 8 or I see 9. I never see 10, but I usually see 8 or 9. So just remember 9 days. So now if you see it, you got it. And then another one. Okay, so we're talking about a wait time. What is the wait time for a patient who arrives at a physician's office at 8:05 a.m. but is seen by the physician at 9:15 a.m.? Remember what that first key I told you about? Knock out those 60 minutes. Get it out of the way. These are the options: 68 minutes, 80 minutes, 60 minutes, or 70 minutes. What do you think it is? Yes, it is 70 minutes. Okay, we have one more thing before we get out of here. Not a long chapter, I know, but we do have one more thing that I want to try. Midterm is next week. Okay. So I'm going to break you guys up into 2 groups. But before I break you up, you are going, and this is from your apply and reflection exercise. So it is up on your announcements, but this one, we're going to do it together right now. Okay. So group 1, once you get into your group, you're going to work on patients A and C. And then group 2, you're going to work on patients B and D. And there's no time. As soon as you guys are done, come right back. So let me go ahead and set you guys up into breakout rooms. I am going to just let it happen normally. Create it. All right. So you guys are all assigned to rooms. Room 1, room 2. There's 5 in one, 4 in the other. And when you guys are done, just come right back. Okay, so now that we're all back, let's see how we did. Okay, so for the first one, group 1, what is your answer for patient A? You can type it in Let me see. You got one. Let's see. Correct. 1 day. That is correct. Group two, patient B. What do you have for patient B? That is correct. All right, we're two for, what is it? One for one? You guys get what I'm saying. We're all up. Okay. All right. Group one, patient C. I'm getting excited. I hope y'all are getting excited. And then the very last patient D. What do you guys have for me? Give yourselves a clap. Yes. Good job, everybody. And of course, this is one that you will see in your apply and reflection. So you already have, if you haven't attempted it yet, you already have, we've worked on it together. So moving forward, when we are going closer to the finals, I'm going to be kind of grabbing more of these so that we can, break them down. And for those of you who do it earlier, if you have one in particular that you like, hey, this is a little bit harder, can we work on this one? Send it to me so that that can be our, in class kind of, let's make sure, and it gives us a boost, right? Like we did that. So good job, everybody. Like I'm all excited. I'm like that parent that's like, yes, they got this. Okay. All right. We're good. All right. So again, we're at week 4. I'm not going to be keeping us any longer. Once the work is done, the work is done, right? But for those of you who are watching this playback, you struck gold with tax-free $6 million. What are we going we what are we going to do with it? Let's talk about it in the discussion forum. Math trivia. Where is 4 considered an unlucky number? It's Asia. And math may not teach us how to add love or subtract hate, but it gives us hope that every problem has a solution. Chapter 5 was all about length of stay. We worked on a lot of the in ebook examples, and then we did work on apply and reflection. The complete apply and reflection review is up on your announcements, as well as any highly missed questions. What questions do y'all have for me? I don't see any questions yet. All right, perfect. Well, on this Tuesday evening, you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Be safe this weekend and next week's midterms. Looking forward to seeing everyone who can attend. Good night, everybody.